The daughter of my father's concubine used my name to climb into the prince's bed. The empress wanted to have her beaten to death, but she claimed it was my orders, just to test the prince's true feelings. My maternal family holds 50,000 troops and loves me dearly. The empress dared not offend me, so she forced the concubine's daughter to marry a brute and leave the capital. The crown prince also insisted that he had never touched the concubine's daughter and only wanted to marry me into the eastern palace as soon as possible. Later, the concubine's daughter had an affair with another man, was discovered by her husband, and beaten to death. The crown prince, who had always been gentle and considerate, suddenly changed his demeanor, pressed a knife to my neck, and shouted with hatred, "If it weren't for you insisting on marrying me, how could she have left me? She's dead, you'll die with her." He used the knife to turn me into a human pig, torturing me to death with a smile. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my sister climbed into bed with him. Thank you for watching. Your support keeps these stories coming. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more captivating tales. What story should we tell next? Let us know below. Chapter 1. Your Majesty. It wasn't my own desire to seduce the crown prince, it was my sister who sent me. She said she wanted to test the crown prince to see if he was worthy of entrusting her life to. So she sent me. If it weren't for my sister, I wouldn't dare, even if I had 100 dares. Lu Qingqing had the same face as her mother, a face that could bring ruin to a country. Kneeling on the ground, crying pitifully, looking so pitiful. The empress glanced at me without a word. "You're lying." The eldest daughter of the chancellor's family would never be so jealous as to send someone to test the crown prince before marriage. Do you think I can be so easily deceived? The incident repeated itself, and Lu Qingqing's defense was identical to her previous life. My sister. She has been spoiled since childhood. She always said that the man she marries must be the best man in the world, and she must be loyal to him for the rest of her life. Even now, even though she has been betrothed to the crown prince, she doesn't want him to take concubines. So, she resorted to this desperate measure to test his character. My sister is the legitimate daughter, while I am merely the daughter of a concubine, of lowly and humble birth. How dare I disobey my sister's orders? The empress's gaze lingered on my face. Miss Lu, are her words true? Of course not. Lu Qingqing's words, though seemingly praising my loyalty, were actually meant to solidify my reputation as spoiled and jealous. She would seduce the crown prince, no doubt, to secure a better future for herself. You must understand that as the most promising man in the Qian kingdom to ascend the throne, any woman who has slept with him could become a concubine. And if she bears his child, she might even become the empress dowager. Seeing through her motives is not difficult. It was foolish of me in my previous life to think she had simply strayed from the path and, out of a moment of weakness, admitted everything to the empress in order to spare her life. But when I recall my own tragic fate, my heart can no longer be stirred by her innocent facade. I rose to my feet and bowed, saying calmly, "Empress, this was not my doing." Before the emperor arranged the marriage between me and the prince, I already knew that the prince's mansion already had several concubines. If I sought a lifetime of devotion to one man, I would never have agreed to this marriage. However, my younger sister seems to harbor deep feelings for the prince and is willing to sacrifice her reputation to serve him. Today, I am pleading with your majesty on my sister's behalf, asking you to allow her to enter the Eastern Palace. I know her status will never allow her to become the main wife, but even as a concubine or a maid in the harem, please grant my sister's wish. Lu Qingqing looked at me in disbelief. She couldn't understand why I would voluntarily plead on her behalf. But this outcome was indeed the best possible outcome. Even if she were to become a concubine, or even a maid in the Eastern Palace, her status would still be insufficient. Of course, Lu Qingqing was not the only one who was excited. There was also the crown prince, who had remained silent all along. His entire body was tense, and his words betrayed his urgency. "Mother, your humble son believes that although the third young miss of the Lu family was born to a concubine, her speech and demeanor are no different from the other young misses in the mansion. Such a dignified person doing all this must have her reasons. Your humble son was also foolish and couldn't control himself, ruining her reputation. I should take responsibility for this, since Shisher is so magnanimous and has voluntarily pleaded for her sister. Perhaps." The Empress glared at him, then turned to me with a gentle expression. "Miss Lu, as a woman, I understand how disgusting this must be for you. If you are merely speaking out of anger, I will have this insolent servant dismissed." Lu Qingqing seduced the crown prince and couldn't defend herself. "It was all my doing." As the Empress's legitimate daughter from a high-ranking family, she naturally looked down on such lowly tactics. But I insisted. "Your Majesty, I don't care. My younger sister is deeply in love with the crown prince. As her older sister, it is my duty to protect her. The crown prince and she are deeply in love. I simply cannot bear to be the one who ruins their relationship. Therefore, let the crown prince welcome my younger sister into the Eastern Palace." The crown prince furrowed his brows, probably sensing the underlying meaning in my words, feeling as though he was being treated like unwanted trash. But since he could be with Lu Qingqing openly, he swallowed his pride and smiled, praising me. Sure. You are truly understanding. To have a wife like you, I am truly blessed in this lifetime. Rest assured, I will welcome you into the Eastern Palace first, and then fetch your sister afterward." I curved my lips. "Your Highness has misunderstood. There is an ancestral decree in my family: men may not marry their sisters, and sisters may not serve the same husband. Since your Highness has already promised to marry my sister into the Eastern Palace, I willingly step aside." As the words fell, the three of them froze in place. After a long silence, the usually composed and dignified Empress nearly dropped the jeweled hairpin from her head. "What? Miss Lu, what do you mean? Are you breaking off the engagement?" I nodded. "Your Majesty, I can see that the Crown Prince's heart does not lie with me. He seems to have deeper feelings for my younger sister. I do not wish to harm my sister or His Highness, and I dare not defy the ancestral edict." After speaking, I looked at the Crown Prince and smiled. "Your Highness, rest assured, I will personally meet with the Emperor to explain the circumstances. Though I am disobeying the imperial decree, I will not involve your Highness in any way." The joyful smile on the Crown Prince's face shattered completely. He hurriedly grabbed my sleeve. Sure. Are you blaming me? It's my fault for not being able to control myself. I will never do it again. If you are willing to break the engagement for this, it would be detrimental to your reputation as a woman. This is what I will do: I will not marry your sister, as long as you become the Crown Prince's consort. How about that? Looking into his eyes, which were brimming with deep affection, I felt like vomiting. In my previous life, because I admitted to instigating Lu Qingqing, the Empress spared her life but sent her away, marrying her off to a rising young officer and banishing her from the capital. Who would have thought that she, without any sense of shame, would have an affair in the military camp and be discovered by her husband, who beat her to death? And this Crown Prince, who had sworn before our marriage, "I will never make the same mistake again. I will send away all the concubines once you enter the palace, and I will spend the rest of my life atoning for my sins," had endured 5 years of suffering. Once my maternal family had secured his ascension to the throne, he finally acted, slaughtering my entire family and torturing me to death. I clearly remember that at the time, I had already been turned into a human pig. Though I could not speak or see, his cold, Vicious voice pierced my heart with every word. You were nothing but a stepping stone for my ascension to the throne. Why couldn't you see your place? Why? Why were you so heartless as to make the Empress Dowager marry you to that brute? If it weren't for you, how could she have died so tragically? I should have been living in harmony with her, with children and grandchildren by our side. I will never see her again. You must atone for your sins with your life. My thoughts snapped back to the present. As the Crown Prince opened his mouth to utter that ridiculous promise again, I quickly knelt down on the ground. Your Majesty, if I were to marry into the Eastern Palace as the Crown Prince's consort, I would be defying the ancestral edicts. In that case, I would be unworthy of the title and unable to fulfill my duties as a virtuous consort. The Crown Prince is the heir to the throne. How could his harem be managed by someone who is disloyal and unfilial? Please, Empress, think carefully before acting. My stance was clear. The Empress tried to persuade me further, but I had already stood up and walked away without looking back. Rest assured, Empress, I will take full responsibility for this matter. I will go to the palace immediately to see the Emperor, thinking that once I left today, I would never have to endure the suffering of my previous life again. The sky seemed bluer than usual. Soon, I arrived at the palace. Upon hearing that I wished to annul the marriage, the Emperor's slightly raised corners of his mouth immediately dropped. Do you not know that I am the Emperor? Once my word is spoken, it cannot be taken back. This marriage was bestowed upon you by me. If you annul it, you are defying my imperial decree. I had already anticipated this situation. After all, the Emperor had bestowed this marriage upon me because of my maternal family's influence. Since the Crown Prince was personally chosen by the Emperor as his heir, he had naturally made preparations to entrust the throne to him. As the most powerful noble family in the Qian Kingdom, my maternal family held the greatest military power. The Emperor naturally wanted to bring their influence under the Crown Prince's control, and I had become the most suitable intermediary. Now, if I were to call off the engagement, it wouldn't just be me, a woman, leaving the Eastern Palace. It would also mean relinquishing the 50,000 troops under my maternal grandfather's command. I knelt on the ground, pinched myself, and forced out a few tears. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince and my younger sister are deeply in love. I dare not defy the ancestral decree. Under the Emperor's puzzled gaze, I recounted everything that had happened today in detail. The Emperor flew into a rage. This traitorous son, with the wedding date approaching, how dare he act so recklessly? Princess consort, rest assured, I will certainly take care of this for you. Though it seemed the Emperor had scolded the Crown Prince mercilessly, he still refused to grant me a divorce. It doesn't matter, I have a plan. Your Majesty, I am determined to leave. I am willing to accept any punishment for disobeying your orders. However, this is a matter of my lifelong happiness. I beg you to grant me the opportunity to choose for myself. Although the Emperor is the supreme ruler, marriage has never been something that can be forced against one's will. Over the years, the Emperor has worked diligently to maintain his reputation as a kind and wise ruler. If he were to force me to marry the Crown Prince, his reputation would be ruined overnight. Moreover, I have my maternal grandfather to back me up. My maternal grandfather's family has only one daughter, and since my mother passed away, he has pampered me like a precious jewel. Everyone in the capital knows this. After careful consideration and weighing the pros and cons, a flash of reluctance crossed the Emperor's eyes. Yes, the Crown Prince was indeed in the wrong. If you insist on breaking off the engagement, I can do nothing about it. This is what we'll do. Marriage is no trivial matter. You're acting out of anger now, and I fear you might regret it later. I'll give you 3 more days to think it over. After speaking, the Emperor cited busy state affairs and a flare-up of an old illness. ordering several eunuchs to escort me out of the palace. Back at home, another drama was unfolding. By the Empress's decree, Lu Qingqing, the third daughter of the Lu family, is of loose morals, seduced the crown prince, and brought dishonor to the imperial family. 50 slaps on the face. Lu Qingqing, wearing only a thin inner garment, knelt alone in the courtyard, tears welling in her eyes as she looked fearfully at the eunuch delivering the imperial decree. Eunuch, if I receive 50 slaps, even if I survive, my face will be disfigured. Please have mercy and let me see the crown prince so I can plead for mercy on behalf of the empress. The eunuch looked at her with disgust, then forced a smile and turned to me. Miss Lu, the empress knows that you must be very angry today because of this lowly servant. She ordered us to bring her back from the eastern palace in her undergarments. We waited until you returned to the mansion before carrying out the punishment. Take a good look, if it helps you vent your anger. The servants can report back and be spared. I understood the empress's intentions, but what she didn't know was that I had lost all interest in the crown prince. Even if I were to remain unmarried for the rest of my life, I would never marry him. Come to think of it, I should thank Lu Qingqing. If it weren't for her giving me this opportunity, I wouldn't have had a good excuse to call off the engagement. But since the empress is promoting me, I can't be ungrateful. I said indifferently, Eunuch, since it's the empress's order, go ahead and carry out the punishment. Thank you for your trouble. The eunuch smiled and nodded, rolling up his sleeves to prepare to strike Lu Qingqing. Just then, a voice rang out. Stop! It was my father who couldn't bear to watch anymore. He smiled, approached the eunuch, and discreetly slipped some silver into his hand. Eunuch, you're a favored servant in the palace. You're delicate and precious. This kind of rough work isn't suitable for you. Let the servants from our household do it instead. The eunuch pushed him aside, adopting a stern expression. Hey, Mr. Lu, what do you take me for? I'm the empress's man. As a servant, I dare say this. But since she's the daughter of a concubine, she should be kept at a distance. How could she be allowed to go to the eastern palace to seduce the crown prince? Now, your legitimate daughter is angry and has gone to the palace to beg the emperor to annul the marriage. This marriage has been ruined by this lowly concubine. And the empress is furious. My father showed no sign of surprise. He awkwardly smiled and put away the silver. Yes, eunuch. I'm the one who doesn't understand. Several eunuchs struck Lu Qingqing's face violently. The empress also said that for every slap you receive, you must kneel and thank the emperor's boundless grace. After 50 slaps, you must kneel at the gate of the Lu mansion. You may only rise when your elder sister forgives you. Lu Qingqing cried as she was beaten, her screams and expressions of gratitude echoing in turn. After dozens of crisp, pleasant sounds, she knelt at the mansion's gate with her face swollen like a pig's head. Behaving properly, the eunuchs had carried out their orders and returned to the palace. In the dead of night, my father hurriedly called me to the main hall. Sure, your sister has wronged you, but the empress has already had her slapped. Her body is already weak, and now it's cold outside. If she continues to kneel like this and develops a chronic illness, how could you possibly forgive her? I laughed. How could she have done that to herself when she went to the eastern palace to sleep with the prince? Father, if you feel so sorry for her, why not accompany her in her punishment? It's no wonder I'm so defiant toward my father. I will never forget how, the day after my mother died, he openly brought Lu Qingqing and his concubine Lin into the mansion. Not a trace of sorrow, but instead, he spent every night with that concubine, making merry until dawn. Over the years, his favoritism has been obvious. If it weren't for my maternal grandfather looking after me and my status, I'm sure my father would have already been swayed by Lin Shu's flattery and left me with nothing. Although Lu Qingqing is pampered by him, she wouldn't dare to seduce the crown prince. Perhaps this was also a scheme concocted by my father and Linshi. Since my father can disregard my feelings to fulfill Lu Qingqing's wishes, why should I care about them? The coldness and distance in my words are simply my way of treating him the same way he has treated me. And yet, he actually got angry. What do you mean by that? Are you asking your own father to punish you by making you kneel? Back then, your mother relied on her status to be fierce and jealous. Now she's even given birth to a daughter like you. Qingqing is your own flesh and blood. How can you bear to do this? I scoffed. Father, aren't you supposed to be deeply attached to her? If you can't even demand anything from her, how can you demand anything from me? When was my mother ever jealous? When you wanted to bring that courtesan from the Lin family into the mansion, ruining your own reputation, she refused. Was that jealousy? Now you've gotten your way. The officials in the court all know that in the back courtyard of the Lu mansion, a courtesan calls the shots. My father's eyes suddenly widened, and he swung his hand fiercely toward me. I dodged to the side and looked at him coldly. Don't forget, when my mother married you, you were just a lowly 7th-rank official. It was my mother who plotted and schemed for you all these years. And it was my maternal grandfather who arranged everything for you. That's how you rose to become a minister. What right do you have to hit me? My father, enraged, tried to strike me again. The few guards my mother had left me dragged him out forcefully. You, Lu Ningshi, you are so unfilial. Don't you fear being struck by 5 bolts of lightning from heaven? 5 bolts of lightning from heaven? That would be better than being turned into a human pig and tortured to death. This night would not be peaceful. Before dawn, heart-wrenching cries echoed outside. Miss, it's my fault. I shouldn't have fallen in love with the master and risked my life to bear his child. Please, for the sake of your sister, let her stand up. She fainted 3 times last night. The doctor said her body is too weak. If she continues to kneel, she might die. Miss Lin, if my daughter dies, I'll kill myself too. I know you've always hated us. So let us fulfill your wish today. Linshi had spent her entire life clinging to my father's heart, and her only talent was playing the victim. Over the years, she had gained many favors from my father by shedding tears. I am naturally indifferent and unwilling to compete with such lowly people. They know my temperament, so they rarely provoke me. Now, Lu Qingqing is being praised to the skies outside, so she had no choice but to come to me. I opened the door and saw her wearing thin clothes, crying hysterically. My father stood beside her, his eyes filled with pity. What a tragic and heart-wrenching scene. But I only felt disgusted. If you want to crash, go ahead and crash. Get out of here. This is my courtyard, don't dirty it. Linshi knelt on the ground, grabbing my pant leg. Miss Lu, I know you have a stubborn temper, and Qingqing was at fault first. But please forgive her. She's still young and has a bright future ahead of her. I'm old now. Being with Master Lu is like a dream come true. I'd give my life for her. Can I die in her place? My father couldn't bear to listen anymore and glared at me coldly. Lu Ningshi, are you really this heartless? You're driving them to death. What good will that do you? Forcing them to death now wouldn't bring any immediate benefit. After all, I still needed to use them to completely annul the marriage. Enough. Linshi, go help Lu Qingqing. If she dies, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Father, hurry and call some good doctors. Don't let my sister die. The 2 of them were overjoyed and rushed to the front gate to help Lu Qingqing inside. As for me, I stayed outside the palace gates, waiting for them to open. Princess consort, you're here so early. Have you come to your senses? My royal son may be foolish, but last night he confessed his true feelings to me. His heart has always belonged to you alone. He was completely bewitched by that Lu Qingqing. The emperor smiled at me, but I put on a show of weeping uncontrollably. Your Majesty. The position of crown princess is something this humble maiden dare not even dream of. This humble servant thanks the empress for sending an eunuch to vent my anger yesterday. But it only enraged my father and his concubine, who threatened my life to force me to step down. My younger sister, out of devotion to the prince, wore thin clothes and endured the cold wind all night. And now she has fainted. If she dies, my reputation will be ruined. The emperor's smile froze instantly. He glanced at the eunuch beside him, who nodded in understanding, and they hurriedly left the room. Shouldn't Prime Minister Lu have acted more sensibly? Yes. My father shouldn't have acted so recklessly. One is the legitimate daughter of a high-ranking official who holds military power, while the other is the daughter of a prostitute, barely worthy of being called a concubine's daughter. Who is more important? Even a fool could tell. But my father, he really is a fool. From the moment he met the Lin family, his mind was sealed shut. Whether it was family honor or personal interests, as long as it was mixed with the Lin family's tears, he would stand up for them, becoming a mountain in front of the Lin family. Unfortunately, that mountain was nothing more than a mountain in front of the Lin family. In my eyes, and in the emperor's eyes, I was as fragile as a pile of sand. The emperor comforted me while waiting for the eunuch's reply. Soon, the eunuchs returned and whispered to the emperor. The emperor flew into a rage and slammed the table. That Lu Xiang and that lowly concubine dare to be so bold. How dare they? I wiped away my tears. Please grant this concubine's honor. Call off the engagement, even if it costs this concubine her life. I dare not lose this honor. The emperor's face darkened for a moment before he clenched his teeth. Very well. Since that is your wish, I have no reason to force you further. This marriage is off. After speaking, he forced a grim smile. I will not blame you. You may return in peace. At the palace gate, I saw the crown prince. He looked dejected, walking over to block my path. Sure. After all these years with me, you truly have such a heart. Looking at him, I couldn't even bother to maintain a smile. Your Highness, it seems you don't care about our years together either. Otherwise, you and my sister wouldn't have been dragged off that bed, exposed by my words. His expression turned cold. Fine. You said it yourself. If you don't want to be the crown princess, there are plenty of others who do. Lu Ningshi, don't you dare regret this. With that, he stormed off. Have you heard? The eldest daughter of the Lu family and the crown prince have broken off their engagement. And it was the eldest daughter of the Lu family who begged the emperor for it. Who doesn't know that? Didn't you see Lu Qingqing kneeling outside the Lu family's gate for half the night? This is the punishment from the emperor and empress. How dare she, the daughter of a prostitute, not know her place and dare to ruin her elder sister's marriage to the crown prince? Now that the eldest Miss Lu has rejected the crown prince, and the crown prince has defiled Lu Qingqing, he should at least take her into the Eastern Palace. Otherwise, her life is ruined. They say that dragons give birth to dragons and phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. The daughter of a prostitute, cough cough. She was born to do this kind of thing. What's the point of talking about virtue? She doesn't care about it at all. As for this Lu Xiang, he's truly a fool. If his legitimate daughter had married the crown prince, he would have become the father-in-law of the emperor. Instead, he pampered and indulged his concubine. Now look at him, it's all for nothing. At least it gives us something to gossip about after meals. The entire Lu mansion, along with Lu Qingqing and her mother, had become the laughingstock of the capital. Because of the ruined marriage, the emperor was furious and issued an edict demoting my father 2 ranks. When he received the imperial decree, He was struck speechless, standing there motionless for a long time. When he finally came to his senses, he blamed everything on me. You. Your sister merely admires the crown prince. Why did you have to be so ruthless? Breaking off the engagement and even going to the emperor's court to accuse him. Disregarding your father's career? Seeing his furious expression, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Father, I don't know what you're so angry about. Since my sister admires the crown prince, wasn't breaking off the engagement to fulfill their wishes? That night, it was you and Lady Lin who came to my courtyard to plead with me. I only went to the palace to beg the emperor to spare her punishment and save Lu Qingqing's life. The outcome today is exactly what you've been begging for all along. What else could you possibly want? My father looked like he had a lump in his throat. He clenched his teeth and said, "Wicked daughter. You just wait." Wait? To put it bluntly, with my father's talent and abilities, even the position of a 7th-rank official was undeserved. Even if I waited until my next life, I might not get anything. So, I kindly reminded them, what are you waiting for? Father, are you still dreaming of making Lu Qingqing a concubine in the Eastern Palace? Waiting for the day when the crown prince ascends the throne, she becomes a favored concubine, and takes revenge on me? You're completely mistaken. The emperor and empress will never agree. Sure enough, my father and Lin Sure both lit up, and I could even feel that Lu Qingqing, who had been bedridden, sat up. You've been corrupted by your mother. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Go back to your courtyard. I left, but the three of them were completely excited. After all, in their minds, I couldn't marry into the Eastern Palace, but Lu Qingqing could, even if she wasn't the crown prince's consort. As long as the crown prince ascended the throne, Lu Qingqing could strive to become a favored concubine, right? Then, wouldn't they also become the emperor's father-in-law? My father has lived under my maternal grandfather's oppressive shadow all these years. He must have dreamed of escaping his shadow. If he truly became the emperor's father-in-law, he could finally see the light. They would certainly send Lu Qingqing to the Eastern Palace. But at this critical moment, the emperor and empress despise Lu Qingqing so much that they wouldn't even consider letting her enter the Eastern Palace. That night, I saw Lu Qingqing heading toward the Eastern Palace. I don't know how the crown prince persuaded the emperor and empress, or if he managed to secure Lu Qingqing for himself. However, the emperor and empress have issued an order: Lu Qingqing will receive no official title. Even if she enters the Eastern Palace, her status will be lower than that of a maid there. But perhaps this was for the best. At least she hadn't betrayed her mother by following in her footsteps. Before Lu Qingqing was to enter the Eastern Palace, she begged Lin Sure to give her a generous dowry. I ordered my men to bring back all those precious treasures. Lady Lin flew into a rage. What are you doing? These are the dowry items I gave to my daughter. How dare you take them? I sneered coldly. These are clearly my mother's dowry items. You, an illegitimate concubine who can't even show your face in public, dare to touch my mother's belongings? You're truly from a brothel. No one taught you proper manners, you only know those lowly tricks to please men. She glared at me fiercely. Lu Qingqing, who had rushed over in a hurry, also abandoned her usual subservient demeanor and shouted at me. Lu Ningshi, you've been bullying people for years. Now that I'm about to get married, why won't you let me go? Let you go? I felt as though I'd heard the funniest joke in the world. All these years, you and your mother have taken advantage of my father's blindness to bully the illegitimate sons and daughters. In the back courtyard of the Lu mansion, you've lived in luxury. How could I possibly bully you? Now that you're getting married, why are you touching my mother's dowry? Did your mother not save enough for your dowry when she sold herself? My words were harsh, and my father couldn't bear to hear them, so he cursed me with a few vulgar words. This gave Lin Shi and her daughter the courage to speak up. Lu Qingqing grew even more arrogant, let me tell you. Don't think you're so great just because you're the legitimate daughter. Once I go to the Eastern Palace, with the Crown Prince's favor, becoming a noble concubine will be as easy as pie. When that day comes, I'll trample you underfoot and make you apologize for everything you've done today. I curled the corner of my mouth. I hope so. On the day Lu Qingqing went to the Eastern Palace, the Crown Prince actually came to greet her personally. As they passed by me, I saw the identical challenging glances they exchanged. Lu Ningshi, don't think I can't do without you. I'll make you witness how I ascend the throne. By then, even if you regret it, it will be too late. I watched them leave, sighing at their foolishness. He was indeed the emperor's legitimate son and favored by the emperor. But that didn't guarantee he would ascend the throne in the future. In the following months, Lu Qingqing indeed enjoyed the prince's favor. But when the emperor fell seriously ill, the prince was imprisoned in the imperial clan court for poisoning the emperor's medicine. The evidence was irrefutable, and even the empress could not save him. The crown prince was imprisoned for over 10 days before the emperor regained consciousness and released him. He shouted his innocence in the emperor's chambers. The emperor, seeing his emaciated form and unkempt appearance, naturally found it hard to believe. Unfortunately, the evidence was undeniable. Poison was found in his mansion, and several servants came forward to admit that the crown prince had ordered them to poison the emperor. The emperor had no choice but to strip him of his title as crown prince. He spent several months confined to his mansion, spending his days either crying out his innocence or drowning his sorrows in alcohol. No one knew better than I did that he was truly innocent, because this incident had also occurred in my previous life. The fourth prince had always coveted the throne and was waiting for an opportunity to remove the crown prince. With the emperor gravely ill, this was the perfect chance. In the previous life, by this point, I had already married the crown prince and was managing his household. I naturally noticed the suspicious behavior of those servants and went to great lengths to uncover the truth. I used their own scheme against them, catching the fourth prince off guard and demoting him to a commoner, thereby eliminating this formidable rival for the crown prince. In this life, without my intervention, the crown prince, who was preoccupied with his romantic affairs with Lu Qingqing, remained completely unaware. He fell into the trap as expected. In the previous life, fearing that the emperor's illness might lead to further complications, I went to the palace to attend to him. I took care of everything personally and finally managed to tend to the emperor properly. In this life, the palace seems to be in chaos. The emperor's illness not only failed to improve but grew increasingly severe. At first, he could still put on his robes to review official documents. Later, he could only lie in bed and listen to reports. Now, it is said that he must sleep at least 10 hours a day. When he wakes up, he is always dazed and cannot hear what others say. The crown prince, no. Huangfuju, has been deposed, and most of the palace's power is now controlled by the fourth prince and his birth mother, Empress Dowager Li. By the time the empress was stripped of her authority, it was already too late. The emperor had passed away. The fourth prince presented a will, claiming that the late emperor had designated him as the new emperor. Although there were many doubts within the court, he had been planning for years and would not have dared to ascend the throne without absolute certainty. One after another, many ministers loyal to the crown prince were assassinated, and soon, there was no opposition left in the court. Even the empress, who had been imprisoned in the palace for a long time, dared not speak a word. Within just 1 month, the fourth prince had firmly secured the throne. Upon ascending the throne, his first edict was to strip Huangfuju of his noble title, exile him and his family from the capital, and banish them to Lingnan. Huangfuju, of course, refused to comply. That night, he knelt before me, crying hysterically. Sure. I was wrong. I should never have let that woman into my bed. I beg you. Forgive me. Just if you're willing to have your grandfather send troops to help me ascend the throne. I promise you'll be empress. And I'll bring honor to your entire family. Please. Save me. I am the crown prince. How can I be exiled to Lingnan? I looked at him and laughed coldly. Do you know that I actually tried very hard to help you? Unfortunately, after I helped you ascend the throne, you slaughtered my entire maternal family and turned me into a human pig. On your way to Lingnan, be careful not to get captured. If someone cuts off your ears and gouges out your eyes, the human pig made from the crown prince will be a unique treasure in this world. He looked at me in terror, trying to say something, but I kicked him away. Take your Lu Ching and leave immediately. Oh, and one more thing, be careful. If the crown prince suddenly finds himself wearing a green hat, it won't look good. Huang Fuju was exiled to Lingnan. Everyone knew he was the new emperor's political enemy. Since he had lost the battle, he could no longer be treated as royal blood. To curry favor with the new emperor, he must have endured unimaginable torture along the way. 5 days before his exile, everyone associated with the crown prince was also arrested and imprisoned. My father and the Lin family, as the parents of Huang Fuju's concubine, naturally couldn't escape punishment either. The new emperor acted decisively, ordering Lin's execution, while my father was demoted to a remote and barren region to serve as an official. As he was leaving, he wept until his eyes were red for Linshire. But he still pleaded with me desperately. Sure. Since your maternal grandfather was able to save you from the emperor's hands, he must be able to save me too. Please beg your maternal grandfather to let me stay in the capital. I've heard that there's not even a drop of drinkable water there, and the desert is scorching hot on the way there. At my age, I'm afraid I'll die on the way. I'm at least your own father. I mocked him with a sneer. Now you remember you're my father? Back then, it seemed like you only saw yourself as Lu Qingqing's father. Your daughter is going to become a concubine in the palace. Why don't you ask her to save you? He pleaded with me, but was then dragged away by several soldiers in despair. After learning of my recent ordeal, my maternal grandfather, with my consent, had my name removed from the Lu family registry and added to the registry of my maternal clan. I had no further connection with the Lu family. However, news about Lu Qingqing continued to reach my ears. For instance, after Huang Fuju lost his position as crown prince, the soldiers escorting him indeed mocked and abused him to curry favor with the new emperor. He wasn't a prisoner at all, he was more like a laborer. During the day, he had to massage the soldiers' shoulders, pour them tea, and fetch water. Hey! I actually get to pour water for the crown prince. He's not the crown prince at all. He's living worse than my old dog. I used to be one of your guards in the Eastern Palace. Just for glancing at one of your concubines. You beat me. You never thought you'd end up in my hands. Did you? I'll see how long our noble crown prince can last under my torture. What's even more baffling is that Huang Fuju's mansion has many concubines. And with so many people, it's hard to manage them. His methods were always brutal. Among the soldiers escorting him this time, several had a grudge against him. I heard. Our esteemed crown prince was pinned down by several men and raped all night long. Perhaps from that day onward, he could no longer be considered a complete man. He had developed a shadow over certain matters. Lu Qingqing naturally went without his favor for over 10 days. My words proved prophetic. She indeed committed adultery. When Huang Fuju discovered her playing games with several soldiers, shouting, "You're so much better than that weakling of a crown prince," he nearly choked to death on his own blood. However, at that point, he had no right to vent his anger. Instead, he was bound to a table by those soldiers and forced to witness the entire ordeal. The soldiers left afterward. His bloodshot eyes fixed on Lu Qingqing. He charged toward the bed and bit off her ear. As she savored the taste, Lu Qingqing screamed and tried to run away. Huang Fuju pulled her hair while tearing at her face. You whore! How dare you sleep with any man? No wonder your mother was a prostitute. None of you in this family are clean. You slut! I'll kill you today. Lu Qingqing's hair was torn out in large patches, blood flowing freely, and her face was covered in scratches. She could no longer endure it and kicked Huang Fuju in the groin. Yes. My mother was a prostitute, so what? I'll sleep with any man I want, so what? What's the difference between us? You're nothing but their toy now. The last shred of decency was torn from Huang Fuju. He lost all reason, pinned Lu Qingqing beneath him, and began punching her mercilessly. She screamed, begged for mercy, until she was silent. The face beneath his fists was reduced to a pulp. The unrecognizable Lu Qingqing was left exposed on the barren field. The Empress glanced at me without a word. When the Emperor found out, he had him brought back. He had long since lost the ability to think. Standing in the golden hall, cursing the Emperor. I am the true crown prince. You usurped the throne. You will never be legitimate. One day, I will return and kill all of you. The Emperor flew into a rage and ordered him to be turned into a human pig. Fortunately, although the Emperor had been ruthless during his reign, once his position was secure, he implemented benevolent policies to soothe the trembling hearts of the court officials. He implemented benevolent policies and exempted the people from taxes for 3 years. On that day at the palace banquet, I had drunk too much and followed several princesses to the imperial garden for a stroll. In a dim alley, I saw Huang Fuju locked in a jar. His head had been shaved bald, and his lone head was perched atop it. His mouth was slightly open, and the scars inside were still oozing fresh blood. He seemed to be in great pain but could only twist slightly. I turned and left. The past is over, and I will have a peaceful and stable future. The end.